Further evidence that American carnage was Trump's true legacy. The breakdown, special edition, starts now. Welcome to the breakdowns post January 6th hearing special edition. I'm Tara Setmayer. This is the Rick Wilson, who is joining us from an important trip, and we're glad that he's able to make it because another hearing, another set of bombshell facts, another just emotional roller coaster for me as a viewer, again, watching this, particularly what happened toward the end and how they wrapped it up with the witnesses and just Rick. There was a lot to go through here, and I want to start with you and what were some of your big takeaways, because I know what some of mine were, but let's start with you.
I want to begin at the end, in a way, Tara, because the last 7 minutes of the hearing today, almost the last 7 minutes, and Congresswoman Cheney spoke a little bit after that, but Congressman Raskin, in a 7-minute, absolutely stellar and emotionally wrenching performance, laid out what you said in the beginning, the legacy of American carnage. And that legacy is created by Donald Trump, extended by Donald Trump from the moment he swore that oath, and he didn't take it seriously like every other oath in his life. In January of 2017, we were on a downhill spiral of chaos and the inevitability of the violence of January 6th that would resound throughout our history now. As a dark moment in this country, and I think we're going to clip it, folks. So we'll post it online for you later. But Congressman Raskin really expressed it in a way that just brought it all together to the point we've come to in these hearings. They knew that the big lie was a lie. They knew Trump had lost the election, and there were people all around him who knew that he wanted a violent moment on January 6th to occur. He wanted the shock. He wanted the terror. He wanted the fear of his mob in the minds of Congress. We now know that many people in the White House were aware of what was coming. We now know from these draft tweets that Donald Trump was expecting a large crowd to march to the Capitol. He wanted them. He was going to exhort them and did so. And finally, Raskin reminded us of some of the human toll, not just the big picture toll on our country and the fabric of our nation, but on people like Officer Gannell.
Yeah, Gosnell.
And watching them sit there, that line of men and women who defended the elected members of Congress, many of whom have gone back to being Trump worshiping toadies, and who defended our country that day. I think today's hearing was a really important reminder just how much planning was going into January 6th, just how many people were involved, and frankly, just how many people in the White House knew what was happening.
Absolutely.
So that's what I think was the most important moment to me.
Before you go any further, Rick, for those who did not get a chance to see the hearing or turned off when they started to closing statements, I want to read a little bit of what Jamie Raskin said, and the congressman joined We're Speaking recently. And if you guys haven't seen that episode, it's on demand on our channels. Go back and watch it. He's just absolutely brilliant. And he is so passionate and honest in his approach to his dedication to his job and to our Constitution that it's infectious. This is some of what he said. He said, Trump tried to take one of the major parties down the path of authoritarianism in Abraham Lincoln's party, no less. He said, American democracy is a precious inheritance, something rare in the history of the world and rare even today. Constitutional democracy is a silver frame upon which the golden apple of freedom rests, which is a quote from Lincoln. He said, we need to defend both our democracy and our freedom with everything we have so that this American carnage ends here and now. Reading that, I get goosebumps again. I got goosebumps listening to him. And I'll tell you another moment that struck me. And again, we're going to start from the end and work our way back. For those who didn't see, or for those who did, we had two witnesses today. One was a former Oath Keeper who saw the light and came forward and talked about how god-awful that extremist militia or paramilitary wannabe group is. The other was a guy named Stephen Ayers, who was just a Trump lackey. He was a guy who followed Trump, who held on to every word. He said this, he admitted it himself. He went to the Capitol that day because Trump told him to.
That's right.
And he was charged with illegally entering the Capitol. And we all know what happened with the chaos that ensued. At the end of the hearing, there were two very powerful images that were captured that brought me to tears twice, actually. Stephen Ayers talked about how this ruined his life, getting involved in this, and how he'd finally seen the light, and but this had the cost the toll it took on him and his family.
Yep.
I want to show the two images. There's an image of him getting up and hugging Officer Gosnell, who you just mentioned, at the end of the hearing. And Officer Gosnell Congressman Raskin had mentioned at the end of the hearing that Officer Gosnell was just notified a week and a half ago that his policing career was over because of the injuries that he sustained on January 6th. Gosnell was one of those officers who testified with Harry Dunn and Fanone and another officer. They were the brave officers who testified last year about what happened that day. Yeah. And Officer Gosnell is an Iraq war veteran. He's the one who said that it was like medieval combat, worse than anything he'd seen in war. And when he went home that day, he had been sprayed with so many chemicals that he wouldn't let his wife hug him for fear of her being contaminated. Very emotional testimony. He just found out that because of the injury sustained on that day, that his policing career is over. So there's another.
I had not seen that photograph before we went on air. And
right, yes.
I just had a little, I'm a little verklempt right now because, and I tweeted this, or I said this in a video clip just before we came on air. You know, there will be a lot of temptations and to say, oh, Ayers is just one of these redneck guys, deluded, stupid, whatever. He showed more moral courage today.
Yes.
Than all these fucking White House staffers who are like, I can't speak because of privilege. I need to get 57 lawyers in the room. And and not only that, but these fuckers never told the truth that they knew what was coming. They knew this was coming. They
That's
knew
right.
that attack was coming. They were aware of it, dozens and dozens and dozens of them. And they had this fucking code of Trump omerta where they wouldn't speak up and they wouldn't speak out and they wouldn't put the country not only before their party, but before their president.
And they still aren't. They still aren't, Rick, which is what is also so infuriating about this. You know, you mentioned in our, before we went on air, not to go after these two guys.
Yeah,
I agree with you on that because of what you just said. And it shows you that there is such a thing as redemption for the people who recognize the error of their ways, pay the price for it, and now are coming forward to do their patriotic duty for the best interest of this country. So not only did Stephen Ayers have the courage and the moral courage to do what he did, because it was technically off camera. He didn't have to do that. He didn't for him to step forward to those guys who put their lives on the line and lost, fellow law enforcement officers to that day and all of the injuries that they've suffered. He also hugged my good friend, Officer Harry Dunn. We have the picture of that as well. If we can put that up. And he said to him, I'm really sorry. And even now, again, that tells us that there's still hope, Rick. That there's still hope for us as a country, that we can come together. Because imagine the emotions of all of those guys and what that represented for him to be able to say he was sorry to Officer Dunn for all of the things that he was involved in. And he wasn't even one of the guys that was involved in the violent attack on them. He was just an idiot that broke into the Capitol. But still, that represents to me that there's still hope for us in this. There's still hope to turn things around, I think.
Whether you believe in whatever religious flavor anybody who's watching this has, whatever belief set you have, there is something about America in time after time, this providential goodness where we will fuck up in every possible way and pull back at the last minute. That's that guy.
That's right.
Now, there are people who have not pulled back, who have not changed their position, who are still playing fuck around. And the people that they pointed out today that were deeply into this, that are still as completely involved in trying to overturn this election and who believe firmly that they deserve to overturn the election because they believe this country should be ruled by one family and one man only. Steve Bannon, Roger Stone, Ali Alexander, Alex Jones, And there's a whole claptrap of these idiots who are not done yet. This is why Liz Cheney gave a bit of a wake-up call today, a bit of a smack to Merrick Garland when she said, Donald Trump is a 78-year-old man who knows what he's doing. He's not a child.
Right. He's not an impressionable child. So
These people
chastising all the people who are trying to skirt the excuses and responsibility and say, well, Trump was just led astray. He was given bad advice.
Oh, he's just an unsophisticated, poor little old man. But he's just a humble golfer from South Florida.
Right. No, he's a grown-ass man and was president of the United States.
But these people that still believe that they're going to overturn this constitutional republic and overturn the American democracy that has survived every other goddamn thing that's been thrown at us, they're not going to get it without a fight. And even the people they persuade for a little while, and Ayers said today, you got to take off the blinkers.
Yeah, the blinders.
You got to take off the blinkers.
Horse blinders.
Horse blinders.
Yeah, that's right.
Blinkers and blinders are two separate things, technically speaking.
That's true.
Blinkers can be opened with a rein.
That's right.
You use it between these two fingers. Anyway, long story short.
Or the equestrians out there.
Yeah. Blinders are just fixed. They're just like, anyway, they believe that they have this army of people that will never change and can never change and can never be convinced. And you know what? It's tough to convince them. It's hard because they're fed a diet of propaganda horseshit out of the sewage pipe of Fox. Yeah. And they're fed a diet of propaganda and conspiracy horseshit out of the sewage pipe on Facebook. And it's all they ever see. And they live in a hermetic media bubble.
And Twitter, apparently, Rick, we learned about that today, too, and the role that Twitter played in all of this, which we all suspected, we all kind of knew. It was obvious. Yeah. But the fact that there was a Twitter employee who was desperately, for months, trying to sound the alarm, warning that people are going to die here. There's going to be violence. We need to basically cut this off. No, they wouldn't listen. And it wasn't until January 8th that they finally suspended Trump's account. But this poor guy was monitoring this and saw it coming and said, and was just astonished at it. And they had to show him incognito. And like they do with mob witnesses, for God's sakes, for threats against his life and for his livelihood for speaking the truth about it. So Twitter is on the hot seat too. It's not a great week for Twitter. I wouldn't want to be in their PR.
Yeah, not a great week for social media broadly. No. But I think it's important to remember that this guy Ayers is not some sophisticated operative. He's not some deeply political guy. He got caught up in this moment and in this movement because there's a beautiful machine, and I mean beautiful in the terrifying way, a beautifully engineered machine to convince people to do things that are anathema, not only to American values, but in many cases to their own. You know, that guy, he is, again, braver than any one of these White House people. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Brad Parscale in those text messages to Katrina Pearson.
Yes.
Shows like a sliver, like a brief dawning of moral conscience. Guess what? He's still on the fucking Trump payroll. Okay. So kiss my fucking ass, Brad.
Yep.
You are still taking the money. And the idea that anybody around Trump will truly learn their lesson until they make a public hard break is a fool. They're fools. And you know, I want to say this too. What you saw in the revealed drafts of the tweets and the communications with Stephen Miller and the knowledge that the event was going to go as it went, we have opened up a new flank now to start closing the trap on these people and their conspiracy. And I think the 1-6 committee deserves enormous credit today. And I said this a few minutes ago. They deserve enormous credit for building a very structured presentation that is closing up and is going to give everybody the understanding of where the Justice Department can and should go, and where, in fact, the committee ought to consider going if they don't see the motion on the Justice Department's part.
If the Justice Department doesn't get off their ass and do something soon, I really just don't know how the American people continue to have faith in certain institutions. And I say that very candidly because it's so frustrating how obvious this all is. I tweeted that out earlier. Like, it's obvious that the president of the United States at the time, the sitting president, issued a call to fucking arms to go after his own sitting government, to be engaged in an extrajudicial effort, an insurrection, to try to reinstall him illegally outside the confines of our constitutional order to stay president. And he had a lot of people trying to help him do that should have known better. Where are the indictments from the Department of Justice? Enough is enough. How much more evidence do you need?
I mean, I'm sorry.
How much more mens rea do you need?
I know we found the guy. I know we found the guy standing over the corpse after he posted the murder on Instagram.
Right.
And there's blood dripping everywhere. And he says he's done it, but we're not going to go after him quite yet. We're waiting to see if there's more evidence.
Because we're not quite sure yet how that may impact the community or the family, or, you know, it may not be good for the family name. Like, enough is enough with that. It would be way worse if this Department of Justice has not charged Donald Trump and everyone else around him in the inner circle who enabled this. That I do not see how that I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not either, but
and I'm not going to pretend that I understand the whys and wherefores of DOJ procedure.
But it's not even, it's beyond that. We already know.
I get it that the OLC says over and over again, don't be political, don't be political. And in a broad sense, I agree with that. But here's the thing, folks. If you don't take action, they will continue to do this. They will continue to seek to use extra-legal, extrajudicial, and violent means to achieve their political ends, unless they are punished. And I know we can't really wrap our heads around holding people accountable anymore in this country, but you're going to be Attorney General participation trophy, Merrick Garland, if you don't step the fuck up.
And you know what else, Rick? If he's worried about what the political consequences could be or whatever, Merrick Garland, the Republicans are coming for you too. Jim Jordan in an interview with Laura Ingraham last night said that impeaching Merrick Garland was on the table if Republicans took back Congress next year. Okay, so these crazies are talking about impeaching the current Department of Justice Attorney General over I forgot what it was. I don't give a fuck what it was. It's nothing Merrick Garland has or hasn't done.
Merrick Garland could order the wrong toppings on his pizza, and they'd try to.
It wouldn't matter. But the point is that they need to stop this gentlemanly, unspoken code that used to exist.
My honorable friend.
Right. This very gentry political thing needs to go out the window now. This is not a game anymore. This is not anything. This is an environment we have never seen in modern times, not since the Civil freaking War. They better step up and recognize the moment that we are in and do the damn right thing, the hard thing, which is to go after these people and punish them for it. You don't think they're going to do it again? Wait, you know what, Rick? If they don't believe us, or they don't believe what the congressmen are saying, or whoever, believe the people who were in it. Stephen Ayer, who testified today, and Jason he had an interesting name, Van Houten or whatever his name was, but the former the former Oath Keeper guy, right? They said it. They talked about how this has been a fever dream for the Oath Keepers to become a paramilitary organization. They've been lurking in the shadows for all of these years, and Donald Trump gave them permission to pop up rear their ugly heads and activate. Stephen Ayers, when you made the horse blinder reference, he said, "I consider myself a family man who loved his country. No man is bigger than that. For me, I felt like I had horse blinders on. Take the blinders off and step back to see what's going on before it's too late." That was his message to the people who are still in it. That's our message to everyone. Step back, take a look at what's going on here, and do something before it's too late.
We know how hard it is, folks. We do. We know how hard it is. We know how painful it is to lose your friendships and your relationships with people because you step out of the tribal circle. We get it.
We've lived it.
It's cold outside the campfire. We've all done it. Okay. It sucks and you're going to hate it for a while, but there's a point when you realize that you're not going to tear down everything you think you love, everything you think you're defending by doing these things. All these arguments are a lie. The election wasn't stolen. Trump isn't the one man standing between you and Sharia gay marriage communism. None of that's true. And the idea that you're going to be defended by people who use violence against the US Capitol and that use violence against the police officers who guard that Capitol is it should mortify you. It should horrify you.
It should.
But, you know, one of the things that's been done in this country is this von Pappenism of everything. Yeah, I know what I'm doing is morally repugnant, but if I don't do it, Antifa wins. If I don't do it, we're all going to be communists next week. If I don't do it, George Soros will come and eat my dinner. You know, all these crazy arguments, which they're just bullshit. You have the real monsters who you can see very clearly trying to seize the U.S. Capitol and overturn an election. They're not hiding it. They were bragging about it until they started getting arrested.
In open forums. Open
They thought it was cool. And I know a lot of Republicans still say, well, I'm a conservative and the alternative is socialism. It's not.
It's not.
It's not. The alternative is authoritarianism versus the messy bullshit that we use in this country, and that it was successfully held together with duct tape and baling wire and good luck and providence for 240 plus years. And the degree to which the hearings, and I know you've got to wrap up soon, Tara. I know you've got a hard out coming up.
That's okay.
The degree to which these hearings are showing you that, I think I mean, look, and I know a lot of people who watch this are fans. I know some people who watch this are not fans. We have some hate viewers. Mm-hmm. God knows. Look at our YouTube comments. We have some hate viewers. But it's important to understand that this is not a binary choice between communism or socialism or liberalism and conservatism. It's a choice between America and authoritarianism. And the great promise and the lovely frustration, the big tease of the American constitutional system is that nobody gets what they want all the time. Nobody. Mm-hmm. It's pushes and pulls. It's protecting minority rule from majoritarian impulse. And the opposite of this authoritarian populism that is being promoted by everybody from Steve Bannon to Stephen Miller to Donald Trump to Dr. Sabgulka and many of these other idiots, it's dangerous simply because if you lose this system, if you lose America, you will live in a system that is arbitrary, dangerous. It will not be conservative. It will be whatever the dear leader of the time, whoever that might be, wants. It might not always be Donald Trump. You break this system, you could end up at some point, for some reason, with a hyper-progressive communist authoritarian. And then you'll say, but what about the Constitution? What about the law? What about the protections that we rely? Oh, no, they don't apply to that, do they?
Well, the thing about it, Rick, though, is that we've already seen this, what happens in history. We've seen this. This is not new. It's new in America. It's not new in history. The 20th century should have been a roadmap on how or what happens at the end of this if this system breaks. I mean, just ask the Czechs, the Poles, the Germans, ask Europe what happens when you make excuses for this. I mean, the Germans thought when the Nazis were very transparent about their intentions mostly, but they masqueraded it under the idea that they were going to make the trains and bridges, build good bridges and make the trains run on time, which they needed, and take care of the economy. Well, they don't really mean all that other stuff. We're going to have all,
that's just politics. That's just election talk. It's locker room talk.
That's how it started. When the Czechs woke up and realized that they had the last free election for 50 years one day, they didn't think that was going to be their last free and fair election. This has happened before, and the warning signs are here, glaring like Times Square, and which is why we need to reverse this. It's why you hear the passion in the voices of these members on the January 6th committee. Do not be distracted by the shiny objects of the other things that the Trump world and Republicans are trying to throw out there because, it's inflation and those
things are important. Hunter Biden's laptop.
Yeah, Hunter Biden and crack whores, and who cares? That has nothing. Those were all just distractions. There's a couple things that just to recap some of the highlights or lowlights, depending on which perspective you're coming from. from the hearing today, they outlined some of the tweets that came out after, well, even before we get there. Right. It was written about contemporaneously, and also in a lot of the books that came out after the Trump administration went out. That infamous December 18th meeting in the White House. That was where you had the pillow guy, the Overstock guy, Flynn, Powell, Giuliani. They get into the White House unsupervised. There's no adults in the room for like 20 minutes, and all hell broke loose. That's when Sidney Powell went on and on about the crazy Iran and Venezuela and Italian satellites.
And Pepsi.
Right. Oh my God. The Dr. Pepper, the diet Dr. Pepper.
Dr. Pepper, excuse me.
Right. And I think that whoever let that clip go that long to show her slurping it did that on purpose. It just added to the whole insane drama of this woman who's batshit crazy. But that infamous meeting on December 18th is where the expletives were flying once Pat Cipollone and the rest of the right. White House counsel's office came in there, rushed in there to go like, oh my God, get this guy, get the president away from the crazies. And I tweeted this out that I want the writers from Succession to write that scene. Whoever makes the movie or the miniseries, please let them write that scene to that back and forth, because good Lord, I know that's going to be a guy. Dialogue. Yeah.
Someone tweeted, I thought it was perfect. Like, how long into the meeting did it take for Trump to start yelling "bore on the floor"? If you guys watch Succession, you'll get that joke.
If you watch Succession,
"Bore on the floor!"
Bore on the floor. Yes, which just got 25 Emmy nominations, by the way. Fantastic show. Anyway, but that meeting, there was a lot that went on there, and that was the day that I think there was a stake put down that said, "This is crazy talk. We cannot go forward with this." And right. Trump ignored that. He went with team crazy instead of team normal. And he right. put that tweet out at 1:42 in the morning, hours after this back and forth between these guys over how ridiculous this was. At 1:42 in the morning on December 19th was the famous, on January 6th, come to DC, it will be wild. He knew exactly what he was doing. That was the call to arms. And we saw, they outlined in the committee hearing today, how it activated all the Oath Keepers.
That one that said, "Will be wild" means we'll need volunteers for the firing squad.
For the firing squad. There was a couple others. Is this D-Day? Somebody tweeted out. Yeah. Need volunteers for the firing squad is what you said. Fucking A, this is going to happen. Red wedding, bitch. Like, these people, the lunatics that were ready to be right. armed and ready to go to lay down their lives, as they said, they were all ready to go. And that's just on the lower level. We also now see that on December 21st, which I don't think I was aware of this meeting. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rick. Did we know about this December 21st meeting that had Gohmert, Gosar, Jordan,
we did not.
Perry, Green?
We did not.
I think that was news.
Yeah, I think that was
news. That they had this meeting with a bunch of these members of Congress that came to the Oval Office on December 21st to talk about who was going to do what on January 6th, trying to interrupt the proceedings. And it was right. Biggs, Gates, Gohmert, Gosar, Harris, Heiss, Jordan, Jim Jordan, Scott Perry, and Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yep.
Now, that explains why these bastards were asking for pardons. They were in on it.
Absolutely.
They were in on it. They knew good and healthy and well what was going to happen.
They had and I may not be using the correct legal phrase, but there strikes me that asking for a pardon is a consciousness of guilt.
Yes. I mean, I think that's what Harry Litman, who is a lawyer and former prosecutor,
is a smart lawyer,
did acknowledge when we had him on last time. So that they're in some trouble. And I just, again, I don't know. I'm not quite sure how they get away with this.
It's crazy.
We have one more clip I want to show because it also reinforced how Trump went after Pence. And he knew exactly what he was doing, because when the speechwriters put in this line attacking Pence, then White House counsel looked at that and they said, yeah, we don't need to have that in there. It's not a good idea. Then Trump got on the phone that morning of January 6th and had that really heated exchange with Mike Pence. Ivanka Trump testified to that in one of the other hearings. And he was all hyped up after it. And that was where he, I think he called him a wimp and a pussy, Mike Pence.
Right.
And Congresswoman Stephanie Murphy talked about that a little bit. We have the clip.
President Trump had a phone call with the vice president. And as the committee detailed in an earlier hearing, that phone call was, by all accounts, tense and heated. During this call, the vice president told the president that he would not attempt to change the outcome of the election. In response, the president called the vice president of the United States a wimp and other derogatory words. As you can see in this email, after Vice President Pence told President Trump that he would not unilaterally deliver him a second term in office, the speechwriters were directed to reinsert the Mike Pence lines.
So we know that Trump was targeting Pence deliberately. It was deliberate. He knew exactly what he was doing by going after Pence during that rally speech, and he did it anyway. And that coincides with what was already testified to, that when he heard that there were gallows and they were cheering Hangman Pence, that maybe he deserves it, right? Isn't that what was testified to? So this is again, the crescendo is getting to what Donald Trump's intentions were. He knew what he was doing. He wasn't just some dupe that was led astray. This was premeditated. He was an active and willing participant in it, and he is it flows. The ringleader. He is the ringleader, absolutely, of the what's the circus? What do you call it? The mutant parade.
Mutant parade.
The mutant parade.
I am told by our producers, our brilliant and lovely producers, that we have a comment and a question.
Okay, let's get to it.
Will the J6 hearings sway enough people away from Trump to tank him for his run for the presidency?
No, but I did see some polling that came out in the New York Times that's showing that lots of Republicans want a different candidate for 2024. This should be interesting. I said on Peacock last night that I let this internecine war within the Republican Party commence. I don't care. Let them fight it out. Let them duke it out and be divided.
Let them fight.
Let them fight. And this way gives Democrats an opportunity to coalesce around being the pro-democracy party, not the party of crazies. Next. Oh, hell no. Tara cannot leave prior to 75 minutes. I do attest. Well, I appreciate that, except duty calls. I have an appearance on Nightline to do as well as I'm
I see.
guys.
Fancy.
So, well, I am an ABC contributor too. But I wanted to make sure that we got everybody today with us and spend some time and get our raw hot takes after what happened, and glad that we were able to do that. Before I let you go, we will have another show on Thursday at our usual time at 7:00. And of course, next week, how did we forget? Liz Cheney, not only did she say there's going to be a hearing next week, I don't know that we've gotten the time yet or when that's happening, but okay, I'm here for it. But she also happened to mention that Donald Trump engaged in witness intimidation as recent as last week by reaching out to someone who was a potential witness for the committee. They didn't say who. They said it was someone we have not heard from yet, but she let it be known that they were aware that Donald Trump tried to reach out to this witness, and the witness did not respond. They went to their lawyer, which was the right thing to do. This freaking guy is still doing this.
On to things, but instead I go to my lawyer.
I mean, Donald Trump is still emboldened and still witness tampering is beyond me. But that goes to show you that when you don't pay enough of a price, you don't change. You continue to do it. And again, Merrick Garland, call your freaking office.
Step it up.
On that note, I'm going to show it since it's Tuesday. We do have a last week with the Republican Party. So we're going to end on that, and we will see you guys on Thursday.
Thanks, folks.
I'm not mad at black people. Like, what are you talking about? Let me show you.
I love this guy's shirt. I tell you, I'd love to have you get up here. Come on, get up here. Let me see. Get up.
I think eventually they'll end up going back to their own countries with Nassar Jassar kicking in.
I want one of those shirts.
God is our lawgiver, our judge, and our king. So they established the legislative, judicial, and executive branches of government. America's government was designed and patterned after heaven. Don't separate God and government.
Yeah, so I'd hit him on the left, I'd hit him on the right. I'd hit him in the fucking center, sir.
Isn't it amazing how so much that President Trump said still rings true?
Don't get me wrong. I do not support the KKK killing black people, obviously. But that is really it. There are no KKK killing black people. That's fake.
I want this shirt. I'm going to wear it to the next rally.
I would do anything to protect my 5 grandchildren, including, as a last resort, shooting them.
You only have about 7 years left. You could worry about nuclear warming, but you can't worry about the global warming.
And so I remember being like in elementary school and asking my mom, like, I know that we're supposed to believe that people with different skin colors are the same, but like these people are clearly not the same as us. And my mom was like, do not let anybody hear you say that.
People that are just maniacally drunk on hate towards Donald Trump, you know what they really hate? They hate America.
I just thought that maybe Monticello would be protected from this disease of wokeism.
I want that shirt. I want both of them. Take those shirts off and give them to me right now.